Hello and welcome back to the Real Music Talks. Today's guest is Rasmus, a DJ and producer from Bristol. How you doing?
Yeah, hi. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad at all. So for people that have never heard of you before and don't know you, how would you describe yourself and your involvement in music?
Um, so I'm a music producer, so write my own tracks, produce it on my laptop, and then I'm a DJ as well. And I mainly write house-based music, but I'm not restricted to genres per se. But I guess I tend to create stuff that can be played in a club or a festival. But yeah, basically write, record, and produce my own tracks and play them out live.
Amazing. So how did you first get on that path? Maybe think about like your earliest memory of music and then maybe talk about how you got into wanting to DJ and create that style of music.
Yeah. I've always sort of had music as part of my life, because my family were really into music. None of them were necessarily like playing music or actively doing music, but they've always listened to a lot of music. I mean, my dad used to play drums in a band and stuff like that. My mom, I don't think my mom ever did anything, but both my parents basically just always played music as far as I remember. Like as far back as I remember, they've been playing, just putting on CDs of different bands, like in the car or at home, and always been really interested in showing me new music, especially my dad. Um, and yeah, I listen to anything from uh, Pink Floyd to more electronic stuff like Massive Attack or Danish bands because I'm from Denmark as well. But yeah, it's different sort of Danish music, uh, both rap and rock and pop and yeah, anything you name it. Even even stuff like um Cuban music and Spanish music, like it's been very all over the place, I guess. And then we had a piano in my old house that I lived in as a kid, and I would always sit and sort of play the piano and come up with melodies, either learn songs or come up with melodies. And I remember at some point, my dad got an iMac, and it was, I think I was around 11 or something, and uh, it had GarageBand, and I've never seen or heard about that sort of stuff ever. I knew there was something called music production, but I didn't really know how to do it. But he had GarageBand on his iMac, and I sometimes were allowed to borrow his iMac and sit and produce in GarageBand. I had obviously no idea what I was doing. I was like just playing around. But yeah, I remember doing that. Did that for maybe a year. And then I guess when the teenage years came around, I sort of just stopped doing it. I would still play the piano occasionally, but I guess I just got other interests, other hobbies. I played in a few bands, but nothing serious, and it's yeah, very like very low level. Yeah, I think we maybe played like one or two gigs, but something like that. But apart from that, just always listen to music, and then it literally had to take from me be like starting my teens from being 13 till I was 20. I didn't really do any music apart from listening to music and occasionally playing piano. So um yeah, at after I finished my A levels, I had a few gap years. And like in the start of my first gap year, I stumbled across videos on YouTube of like how to make this sort of song in 5 minutes. And found them really interesting. And then I saw like videos of different DJs on tour and stuff. And I don't know, something just captivated me, and I started producing. I got an iMac on a MacBook and started back in GarageBand again. Just like I remember when I was a kid, and yeah, I got really into it. And um, later on, I got my hands on FL Studio, which is what I'm producing now. And yeah, I've never looked back since. Just been producing uh, almost every day since. And yeah, then that sort of made me realize that's what I wanted to do, because I guess in your gap year you want to figure out what to do when you finished with your A levels. And yeah, I found BIMM online. No, actually, sorry, I found BIMM through a student counselor that I went um, to figure out where I could study music, because they had options in Denmark, but it was more focused on classical music, or more, and if it was electronic, it was more like experimental.
Yeah.
And I sort of wanted the thing where I got the music side, but also wanted the business part of it. Like it's like get industry knowledge and all that stuff, which I think is really important when you want to like start any career in music, regardless of the genre. Yeah, and then that student council told me about BIM in yeah, I guess from the UK. They had multiple places. I was actually meant to go to Berlin, um, but I ended up not being able to get the funding to go to Berlin, because it was a UK education based in Germany, which means for some reason that couldn't get funding. So it had to be through. I had to be that education had to be in the same country that it was from for me to be able to like fund the course. Um, so yeah, I decided on Bristol, and got into Bristol through like an online just like an online chat and showcase of my music, and then got into the uni. But it was like during lockdown, so it was really hard to get information from anywhere, or like basically anything you wanted to do, and like paperwork of like moving country, all that stuff, which is really difficult. So yeah, it was a big hassle, but I guess at the end of it, I made it to Bristol. Start of 2020. No, sorry, mid 2020, like September wise. So yeah, September 2020, I came to Bristol, and yeah, started producing music and been playing a few gigs around Bristol. Done a few collabs, nothing major. I'm currently looking to release a lot of music this year. But yeah, that's where I'm at now, and sort of my story, I guess.
It all makes sense. So you had like that basic grounding in GarageBand and the piano,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Then you had that break, you gone back to it, you kind of found like the love for it again, I guess. This is kind of what I want to do. And then you moved over to Bristol, which obviously is quite a big thing to do, right? Like, how was that going from like one country to another to a university study and it being lockdown? That's quite a lot at once.
yeah. It was. Yeah, I can't lie. It was very stressful. It's probably part of like the hardest like part of my life, because it was like, at least so far, because there was so much I had to do on my own. Because I moved away from my parents. I was living in Copenhagen in a flat. Um, and it was during lockdown, so both my flatmates had left to go stay with their parents during lockdown. I was left alone in the flat, having to figure out what to do with my life, like how to do it. Um, in mid lockdown, couldn't go to see anyone. All the like phone um lines that you could call to like get paperwork sorted, get this and that sorted. It was like a massive wait, because there was low staff because of the COVID, so no one could be at work really. Yeah, and it's just there's a lot of practical and paperwork stuff that you need to do, even though like I moved before the Brexit deal was fully through. There was still a lot of stuff I had to sort out. Um, yeah, and that whole thing, doing that on my own, because I couldn't go back to my parents, and my parents were really ill with COVID at the moment, so they couldn't even like be on the phone. So yeah, that was very difficult. But luckily, I found a I found a house very quickly over Facebook, like some Bristol house group thing. Um, and I think it was the second flat that I did like an online viewing for, and I got that. It was a room in a big house, and the good thing about that was that it was a 10-bed house. So instead of moving to Bristol mid lockdown in like a small flat with, let's say, two other people, instead of that I moved into a house with 9 people, and those people knew people in Bristol as well. So it was sort of this big social group. So that's definitely like the reason. It was, if once I got to Bristol, it was really easy for me to just get used to it, and like uh sort of integrate myself in the life of like being in the UK and in Bristol. So that was really lucky. But yeah, definitely a rough path up until moving for sure.
And I guess that gave you an opportunity to channel that into making music as well, right? Maybe do you want to talk about like
Yeah.
how your music's developed over time? Because obviously you said, you know, at the start you were just learning things on YouTube, which
Yeah.
is the standard these days. Lucky for us, right? We didn't have that
Mm.
like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. Why am I taking a music course? Like,
Absolutely. So talk about that. Like how is like your songwriting and music making process kind of developed over time? And like what different things fed into that? So like what did you learn at BIMM? What did
Mhm.
you learn on YouTube? What did you learn for experience?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, way back, when I was a kid and doing GarageBand, that was just doing anything, I guess, just making beats. Can't even remember what I made. I wish I had the file still, but yeah, I guess I noticed looking through my old playlists on Spotify as well. I've always been really into electronic music, and even like some of these CDs I really liked as a kid, were like I guess like rock bands that had like electronic inspired sounds. So I'd listen to Linkin Park, for example, which have a lot of like electronic elements to it. Or there's a Danish band called Nephew, which is sort of it's different, but it's basically rock inspired music with a lot of electronic aspect like elements in it. Um, but yeah, so I actually as a kid I always wanted to be a producer. Um, but it just seemed like sort of like this idea that fantasy idea that I didn't know how to be a producer or do anything. But then when I stumbled upon those videos when I finished my A levels, um, yeah, it just made those videos made it so look so easy. On like how to do I don't know how to do future bass in 3 minutes, and then they showed it and it's like, oh that looks easy, I can do that. And then I guess so it all started with me trying to do what I saw in the videos. Um, so yeah, I guess in the beginning it was just a lot of a lot of copying, um, and a lot of I did a lot of melodic stuff and a lot of what you like consider classic like EDM, bit happy, yeah, melodic, good melodies and a big drop with a big synth and stuff. But yeah, I guess uh yeah, actually, one thing I forgot to mention before I went to BIM, I went to a small degree, like or like a 3 month course in music as well. Um, and I learned a bit there, and I obviously drew some influences from that place and all the other people I got to work with. Um, so yeah, that was the first one that course I did was the first time that where like it took me out of the sort of the YouTube aspect of learning about the music, and I was beginning to sort of experiment a bit more in terms of my sound and like my style. Um, but I still have that like very EDM-y sort of sound without being interesting in a way. Um, but I kept trying to push myself to try and like figure out how did they do this track and I really read into the I would take a track and analyze the track and see, okay, so how do they make the verse go into the pre-chorus into the chorus, and like why does that sound good? Because I can copy it, but when I copy it doesn't sound right. And I guess that's the sort of thing I've been looking for a long time. And then obviously going to BIM, I then went to that was a like even bigger sort of realization of the different sort of aspects to music that you or like electronic music that you could do. Thing like drum and bass, for example, which is nothing I do personally as a like genre, but I do listen to it. And I realized I have been listening to that sort of music as well, and like UK bass music, and jungle and those sort of genres. They've definitely like influenced me. Without me, I'm still doing house music, but I guess I'm just taking inspiration from like working with other people and listening to their tracks, and I'm slowly getting sound. I feel like I'm now in my third year, and I'm at a point where I'm very confident with like my sound compared to when I started BIMM. So when I started, I had a vague idea of what I was doing, but you couldn't really hear it. I might have an idea of like how I wanted it to be, but you couldn't hear you couldn't hear my sound, I guess. But I feel like now, people are starting to like notice that I have a specific style, and even I've started to notice it a little bit. And basically, it's way more. There's just way more focus on the sound design of like the synths, um, and I guess the tracks are a bit darker, a bit more cloppy. So yeah, and they definitely came from like being out in Bristol, playing gigs in Bristol, and listening to a lot of drum and bass and sort of like heavy dark sort of tunes that are very popular in Bristol has definitely influenced my house music, which isn't that popular in Bristol, but it's, I guess I've taken the feeling of it and sort of trying to apply that to my music. So yeah, that's that. I actually forgot exactly what your question was, but I hope that sort of answered it.
No, I think that makes sense, and
Yeah,
it's natural for you to do that. You know, if you move to a new place where there's new influences, it's gonna like
yeah,
feed into your sound. And like you were saying, you know, whatever like genre of music you're creating, it takes some time to kind of like carve out what your sound's gonna be, and
yeah.
you only get that through like experimentation, like doing a track
Mm,
that might be like slightly different, adding like different sounds you haven't used before.
yeah.
Um, and obviously, there's so many possibilities in the world of electronic music.
Hmm.
So that makes it kind of even harder to carve out your sound, but you kind of start stacking the different layers. Like these are the sort of synths I like, this is the sort of beat sounds that I like, etc. And then going from there. So you mentioned you play with other people in Bristol and stuff. Like talk about like that process, maybe like how did you find these people? What did you do with them? What benefits did you kind of find from collaborating with different artists?
Yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, most of the people I've collabed with has been like from BIMM, so from my school. Uh, but I guess the first like real collaboration I did was with a singer called Emmy Odin, which like she was a year above me on another course at BIM. She was on the songwriting course, and yeah, basically that was like my first proper collaboration and release through BIM. Um, and that's all like so the way it went was that I had a track idea and applied for something called Hub Records, which is BIM's own record label, and they accepted me in as an artist, and then we had to find a singer for the song. And yeah, they then introduced Emmy, and I then got to work with her one to one in the studio, like writing the song. And I mean, she did most of the writing, but I was still part of the process of like writing the song, and I help him with the melodies of the like lyrics. And it's just a really cool process, and like that whole dynamic was just like it just felt so right in terms of what I wanted to do in the future of like me as a musician. um like being in the studio with someone that you like don't really know, but you've like maybe heard a bit of their music, but you just like someone that you respect because they're like really good at what they do, either a singer or a producer or whatever. But that, yeah, just that was the first time I had that feeling in the studio, being like, oh, this can really be something. This is really cool. And yeah, I guess apart from that, then I've just been in the studio, mainly at BIM, but also at my studio here or at one of my mates' place. Um, just I'm trying to like, especially with people on my course, I'm trying to go to the studio with as many people as I can before I'm finishing uni. Uh, because I've noticed like when I started uni, it was more a lot like oh, this person does this sort of music, this person does this sort of music. I can never work with this person because it's very far from what I do. But I've just noticed that by doing what I've been doing with like going to the studio or talking or sending tracks which to other people, finding out, okay, or this person who does drum and bass actually also really likes doing house, he just hasn't released it. Or I've listened to someone doing a different genre than me, and I've then made like a track with that, like the other person, and I guess realized that I can sort of move as well, so I don't have to stick to what I always been doing or like want to think I want to do, because at the end of the day, for me, it's just about making a good track. It doesn't really matter what the genre is, and also I guess a genre is really a loose term that we try and classify a song as. We can't, like, it's always going to be a mix of some of different genres. Yeah, I mean, I've been working with a few people. I've been working with one of my mates called Jilan. His artist name is Mamba. I actually sat in the studio yesterday and mixed one of his songs with him and mastered it. It's getting played on Radio 1. It's pretty cool. And yeah, working with him, been working with one of my mates, Tyler. His artist name is Tremor. He's like a really like heavy neo drum and bass guy, but it's just fun to work with him because our genres are like both electronic and they're both club music, but they're just so far apart. So it's quite interesting when I feel like every time I'm in the studio with him, we can learn from each other because we do stuff so differently, but it's stuff that we can apply to what we do, like, because it's all about getting energy into the sounds or making it big, because that's the sort of thing that works in a club or like at a festival. And yeah, like I'll yeah, just been working with a lot of people for my course. There's a lot of names out there, but like the thing is I haven't released anything with anyone from my course yet. But that's hopefully going to change this year. Yeah, I feel like definitely this year, music wise, I'm gonna like consistently release more because of all the like people I've been working with. I have so many more ideas already this year than I've had any of the other years. And yeah, I just feel like sort of ready to properly release now. But I've released a few singles, which have been mainly self releases. But yeah, this year I'm gonna look into trying to release through a label and definitely getting collabs and actually putting out some of the music that I've been working on with other people, because at the moment there's nothing out apart from that one track. But yeah, it's gonna be exciting for sure.
Yeah, it sounds it. And I love that you talked about like how you've got involved with other people because obviously you bounce ideas off each other, you learn from each other, but
Mm,
also you kind of build off each other's fan bases too. Like,
yeah.
even if someone else that you're working with does a very different style of music, actually they might also listen to you through working with them. So it means that you can kind of like grow and build your audience and your fan base together. Um, I'm thinking of the people that might be watching this, right? So like if someone was debating, like, should I go to university and do like math or should I do like something like music? What would
Mm-hmm.
be your advice in terms of is it worth going to university and studying music?
um Take it off, literally just um I mean, it doesn't matter if you like just finish secondary school or you just finished college or your A levels or whatever. Like, take a year off and get a part-time job uh to sustain yourself, and then use the time you have when you're not working to explore yourself, and potentially, if you can afford it, save up to go travel, or like, and it doesn't have to be Thailand or like Australia. You can literally go anywhere. Just take yourself away from your everyday life, and that, at least especially for me and a lot of people I know, it's when you sort of detach yourself from your day-to-day life that you probably had for like all of your life or whatever, you realize what you really like doing, I guess, because if you've been in school for 10, 15 years, and you suddenly stop school, it's a weird thing, because you've always been used to like having deadlines, having assignments. have to learn about this, have to do this, have to participate in that. But once you stop and sort of step aside for a minute, you realize what you want to do if no one's asking you to do anything. And I guess that can sort of help you decide on what you want to do. So let's say you don't want to know if you're going to go do a music degree or a doctor, or like a doctor degree in medical science or something. Like, I think if you step aside and like explore, I guess it's exploring who you are in a way, that's definitely the best way to do it. Because I think if you just stay in school and like stress about not wasting like any year of like just going back to back with education, you're just going to end up on the other side of the education, be like, okay, what now? And then that's a bit of a shit time to realize that you might not want to do what you're doing. So yeah, definitely take time off, as much as you can, I guess. Depends on where you are in life, but yeah, for sure. That's all I could say about that. Just yeah, step aside.
I think that's a good like piece of advice, like at any stage, to be fair. Like if you're
Mm,
at a point and you're like, I'm not sure what to do next in my life, or I'm hating my job, I'm not enjoying it, you need to like take some things away almost to kind of give yourself space to think and like think,
yeah.
okay, what's going to be next for me? Um, so you talked a little bit about your plans for the future and stuff like that. Like maybe talk me through like what you're going to do in the next year. And also, I'd like to hear you mention that you learned about business in your degree as well.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about that too and like how that feeds into music.
Mm, sure. Um, yeah, so I mean, so far I've been self-releasing. Um, uh, I've basically been working with one of my mates. It's called Jonas, and he is, I guess, he's basically my manager. Um, it's just a mutual agreement that he helps me with my releases and marketing and live stuff where he can. So he went to BIMM as well. So he's finished last year in a music business degree. Um, and yeah, basically we sort of teamed up in, I think I was in first year and he was in second year or something like that. Yeah, but yeah, basically we've been working together on releasing my music. I think he is working with other bands and other artists as well, but I think we're we're definitely the first one. I'm definitely the first artist he took in, and the one that is doing the most at the moment. But yeah, so yeah, I guess so far we've just been self-releasing, looking into different ways of promoting music, because there's so many ways you can do it this like today. So yeah, we've been looking into like so many ads, like so social media like Instagram or Facebook, putting ads on there, see how that works. Um, analyzing it, and then putting out a new ad using the data from the old ad to pinpoint the new ad to like target your audience. But it's really hard. It's a hard thing to do. Like I guess it's not too hard if you put like, you just have to research and like put yourself into like how it works. But we've been trying to do that. Then we tried websites like Submit Hub, where you can submit to like playlists and stuff like that, and blogs. And we've done something called Muso Soup, which is similar, but it's more. It's I think it's free, but I've noticed that the quality, there's a lot of quantity, but there's not a lot of quality in terms of there's a lot of curators that say, oh yeah, we promote it, but then nothing will come from that. But yeah, I guess it's been a learning curve of releasing music on your own, or as a team of two unprofessional people. And then yeah, basically I feel like now I've done that, I want to start releasing music more properly. So I've done one release as a remix. I did an unofficial remix of a Drake song, which sort of went like semi-viral, and then from that, a producer, or a manager to a rapper in Canada contacted me, saying like, yeah, do you want to do a collab? so I basically had to remix one of his songs, and I did that and released it, and it was really cool. And I think after that point, I've been really like thinking about like how that happened, like with that song going viral, and like why that happened, and I guess analyzing both my own music, but also like the sort of strategy of when stuff is successful. The same as I've been doing with my Spotify releases. And yeah, so basically what I'm coming at is that this year I'm gonna try and release through some sort of label or some sort of yeah, either label or marketing group that sort of wanna sign me, or basically at least sign the track, or somehow like say, okay, we believe in this track, we want to put some money behind it or whatever. So I guess get that sort of release. Might still do some self releases, but yeah, I'm definitely looking into releasing through a record label, because I feel like that's, now I've tried the self release, now I'm going to try doing the label part, and I guess I can compare what's better. And yeah, it just feels like the time to do that now. It might be a wrong decision, but this is where I'm at the moment, and you have to try it until you figure out what works for you and your music, I guess.
Perfect, makes sense. No, that's really good to hear. We're actually nearly out of time today. It's been really great chatting.
Hmm?
But is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with as we close out?
Um, yeah, I mean, only thing I have to say is that if you want to, you should go check out the music that I'm going to release this year. I don't have any dates yet, but it's going to be before summer this year, 2023. Uh, and it's going to be probably quite different from some of the stuff I released prior, especially my earlier stuff. It's going to be very club heavy and very sort of aggressive, I guess. But yeah, I'm just so excited to release new music. I feel like this year it's going to be different in terms of consistency and yeah, the sort of music I release. So uh, if you want to follow me anywhere and have a look out, that'd be cool. If not, it's okay. But yeah,
Nice one. Thanks, Rasmus. Appreciate your time.
no worries. Thank you for this. It's
No
cool.
worries.
Cool
Thanks
chatting.
for watching, everyone. See you next time.